Now, we've spoken a lot about weight loss jabs on this show, but we've been delving into the lesser-known side effects.
Yeah, so last week we were discussing so-called skinny jab face, which happens when many users develop a gaunt facial appearance, and what you can do to try and combat that. Today, we're looking at hair loss.
Some patients have reported that they aren't just shedding pounds, they're also shedding their hair, and this is something our next guest experienced firsthand.
Yeah, after rapidly losing 3 stone in just 4 months, thanks to the weight loss injections, Grace Kay noticed that her hair had started to fall out.
After spending months getting her hair loss under control, Grace joins us now to share her story alongside trichologist Lisa Caddy and cosmetic surgeon Dr Munir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Grace, let's start with you first of all. So you took Wegovy.
Wegovy, yes.
When did you start taking it? Why did you start?
So I started taking it in just beginning of March 2024.
Yeah.
And it's something I'd kind of considered for a while. I think it had been in the news for a long time.
Yeah.
And obviously I tried every diet in the world before. And I thought, right, it's time to start that. And it obviously worked really well. So I'm 90 pounds down now.
Goodness me. Wow. How long did it take to lose that weight?
So around 10 months.
OK.
But a lot of it was quite quickly, and that's obviously when the rapid hair loss started.
Right. And when you say rapid hair loss, I got COVID and I could feel it when nobody noticed it on me, but when I held my hair in a ponytail, I could feel the difference. Is that what you...
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, kind of we were chatting earlier, because I'm lucky because I have a lot of hair.
Yeah.
I know, so it probably might have seen, and it has started to grow back. But I would have a bath and it would come out in massive clumps every time I would touch. And I think for me, who'd always kind of put a lot of pride in my hair, especially as I was, you know, in a bigger body before, and it's one of the things that made me feel really confident. So it is kind of startling to suddenly lose that part of you.
Yeah.
And there's this, I guess there's this conflict, because you're obviously thrilled that you've been able to shift the weight, but at the same time, part of you that you're saying was such an important part of your identity is suddenly feeling quite fragile. How did you balance up the two things?
I think it's one of those things I would have been feeling a lot worse about it if I wasn't so excited about my new body. And I think there was all these little things, being able to buy smaller clothes and being able to, you know, go to Pilates and fit in all the equipment, that was such big bonuses that I could kind of put up with the hair loss. And I kind of knew that it would be temporary.
So what did you start doing then? Did you go and speak to anyone, or did you start looking at sort of options?
I just started to focus... Well, I kept focusing on the weight loss and the journey, because I knew that my hair will come back once, you know, my nourishment is, you know, I knew it would come back. And I actually focused more on solutions to fix the appearance. So my wedding was actually coming up in October, so I had to fix out, you know, like extensions and trying to make it, like, look the part.
Right. Lisa, is this something you're seeing quite a lot of?
It's becoming much more common, yes. And I think it's important to point out that it's not actually the weight loss injection that is triggering the hair loss.
Yeah.
It's the weight loss that is triggering the hair loss, because the hair follicle is very demanding in terms of energy, and its food sources, its energy. So when there's that depletion in calories, when we're not eating regularly, it can force a lot of the hair follicles into a resting phase quite quickly. And then 3 months later, the hair starts to shed. And I think that's actual typical timing when Grace started to notice it as well.
And in terms of combating it, I mean, clearly Grace had the confidence that it's going to come back once her sort of nourishment comes back. But is there things you can do in order to sort of not allow it to happen in the first place, or to aid the hair coming back quicker?
I think it's really important that when you do, if you're having the weight loss injections, the food that you do eat is really nourishing, and you have the best source of calories that you can. Supplements can be really useful, because if you're not eating really well or very regularly, you can have nutritional deficiencies. So you can become low in iron or B12 or vitamin D, and there are supplements, oral supplements, that you can take to top those levels up. But it's a lot about calories. You still need to eat enough calories if you want to optimise your hair, really.
And what advice would you give to anybody who's considering doing the weight loss injections, but are hearing this and going, oh, my goodness, though, I don't want to feel like that?
Because they might have thin hair or fine hair as it is already.
Exactly, and then it's much more noticeable when you lose hair, when you start off when it's very fine. I think it's just important that you make each calorie count when you do eat. So a good high-protein diet, maybe start with some supplements. Anyway, we were talking about kind of maybe blood tests before you embark on this.
Dr Munir.
And then you know that actually if you start to support your diet beforehand, you can really monitor it all the way through your weight loss journey. And knowing that the hair loss is temporary, in most cases it does come back.
Which you kept saying to yourself, Grace, didn't it? It will come back, it'll be all right.
Yeah, and it has been.
So, Dr Munir, you were with us last week when we were talking about skinny face, and you helped to add those fillers to help the patient that had struggled with that. And it was when you mentioned hair loss when you're doing it, you preempt somebody going on the jabs by doing a blood test or a swab test?
Absolutely. Like, anything in medicine is about prevention rather than cure. It works much better. So you really want to kind of like look at a patient and see whether they would be at risk, because let's face it, not everyone gets hair loss when they're having these weight loss injections. So you really want to take a detailed history. Blood tests are great, exactly what Lisa was talking about, looking at things like B12, folate, vitamin D, iron levels, as well as hormonal function as well, all have an impact in terms of your hair loss. And there's also these cool new swabs that you can take that actually sample your DNA, and we can send it to a lab, and it comes back. And it comes back with things such as whether you've got an increased propensity to having low B12 in terms of your diet. So you'll be like, OK, fine, I'm going to have these weight loss injections, but I'm going to supplement my B12 because it could possibly affect my hair. And that even goes into treatment options. So we talked about topical solutions, like minoxidil, for instance. That can be used to help with hair loss. And these tests actually tell you whether that's really going to work for you or not as well. So things are becoming a little bit more preemptive and intelligent as a whole kind of holistic treatment when you're looking at hair loss in general.
As Dr Munir said, that knowledge is power, essentially, to know these things genetically, what we're predisposed to really helps. But, Lisa, what can we do as, like, to help make sure that we don't kind of lose our hair?
What products are out there,
So, you know, if we're talking about diet and hair loss, it's a good idea to maybe take some targeted supplements that are targeted for hair. So supplements in the form of a tablet, which will contain things like iron, biotin, vitamin B12, vitamin D. That's a really good idea. So you can take an oral supplement, you could take a liquid that can perhaps also have some collagen in as well, because we know how good collagen is for our skin, our facial skin. And there's things like derma rollering, which as a treatment on its own doesn't have a lot of research behind it, but derma rolling of the scalp alongside something like minoxidil or another topical stimulant can help the penetration and the absorption of those treatments. So they can be supportive treatments. So there's a few little things that you can do to optimise your hair and support it through this journey.
There are one or two surgical things as well, Dr Munir, you can do.
Yeah, so there's some more invasive things. And what I normally say to patients when they sit in the chair, look, I've suffered from hair loss myself since I was 18. I've had a hair transplant. And what I always say is a difference between the hair that you're losing and the hair that you've lost. So if you've got the genetics for hair loss, you're going to continue to lose hair over that time. This is why the treatments that Lisa just talked about are really important, because on a daily basis, you need to be using something to maintain your hair loss. And then once you've lost certain area, that's when you can look at things like hair transplants. Before that, you've got some in-clinic treatments such as PRP, polynucleotides, which are injectable treatments that help stimulate the hair. You've got one of my patients up there that was 2 weeks post a hair transplant.
Right, OK.
So, and hair transplants are both for males as well as females. And it's really important to talk about female hair loss because 50% of females by the age of 50 will actually see hair loss. And that's really high when you look at the population. And hair really means a lot to people.
Yeah. What about rosemary oil as well, Lisa?
Yes, there's been a bit of an explosion of rosemary oil. There was a small study done many years ago comparing rosemary oil with minoxidil. And actually, rosemary oil came out pretty favourable, but it's important to say that that study was very small, it was pretty flawed, and I think you're really better with a prescriptive treatment.
OK.
Thank you all for joining us. Grace, you look amazing.
Yeah, you do.
Congratulations on your weight loss, and your hair obviously has come back.
And your wedding, congratulations on that.
Beautiful day too. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. And we'll see you in the morning.